I was very critical in the husband and wife Resident Evil Village review. Not overly critical, I feel like I wasn't critical enough in some aspects, but this game presents a very weird conundrum that you hardly see in gaming. It's a good, decent game, but a terrible follow-up to the previous game in the series and even a bad game in the series. Feeling like an identity crisis in the series once again. All Resident Evil fans know that feeling. So many times Resident Evil has tried to reinvent itself, changing the entire series on a moment's notice. Sometimes it's worked.
Welcome to the family, son.
Other times it hasn't.
Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil Village feels like it wanted to do one too many things at once, trying to satisfy every fan from every aspect of Resident Evil, all at the same time in one game. In my opinion, they failed. Not horribly, entirely, or laughably, but they did fail. While this game tends to be a fast-paced action shooter with some horror elements, and while it has a pretty inconsistent and incoherent story, told in not the best of manners.
Alright, Ethan. Alright. I guess I owe you an explanation.
There are some really, really good things about this game. A movie, game, book, whatever definitely has something at least a little good about it if you can't stop thinking about it for days. And especially if all the thoughts aren't bad. Or if it makes you want to go back and play every game in the series and not for the spiteful, these are better reasons. I don't hate Village, and I want to tell you the aspects of the game that I've actually kept me from hating this game. So with that being said, let's begin our defense of Resident Evil Village. To begin, we start with one of the most atmospheric openings to a horror game I've played. Definitely one of the best in the Resident Evil series as well. I believe I'd go as far as to say this almost comes close to topping 7's. No, not the Mia, Chris, Amber Alert opening, what comes right after. Ethan waking up next to a burned and charred corpse alone in the dark, snowy mountains. Moving forward, hearing the bushes and trees all around them move and break. The Lycan actually runs directly in front of you, hauling ass. It's so good, tense, and in my case, from my personal experience, actually terrifying, because you don't know what to expect yet. The only expectations you actually have are from the previous game, Resident Evil 7, which was also extremely terrifying. You don't know if Jack Baker's gonna jump out of the woods and curb stomp you again, or if a werewolf is gonna rip you to shreds from behind. I chose not to play the demos, aside from the first one, the short one that takes place in the castle. Maybe that's why I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't touched the combat. I didn't know how action-packed the game actually was, and even now I'm yet to see actual gameplay from those other demos, so my expectations were clean, and I didn't know what was coming. And that tense atmosphere stays for a little ways into the prologue, making your way off the mountain and into the village itself. The first Lycan attack, losing your fingers, all of it was so well done, and it has to be hands down one of the best intros to a horror game I've played. I was sitting as far away from my screen as I possibly could, and not a lot of things really do that to me anymore. But moving on a little further into the prologue, after the attack of the Lycans and you meet Big Fur Boy, who one of my subscribers and friends now from the channel and Discord let me know the name of, Urias, and he actually has an older brother, Urias Strager, hopefully I'm saying that right, the two Lycan bosses that you actually run across. I didn't know they had names. I didn't run across that information in my playthrough, and it's actually really interesting to me. The fact that the game went out of its way to actually name and brand these two bosses, the bosses of the Lycans. And let me say before we move on, while the Lycans and other minions, I'll call them, the area-to-area monsters you fight in between the side and sub-bosses were done extremely well, the design of the Lycans is intense, feral, animalistic, just like a werewolf. Some evolved, though, I guess learning horseback riding, which I also have to say was just pretty cool. But the design of the enemies, especially the Lycans, really shines through. I really enjoy the design of the minions in this game. Anyway, back on point, after the survival section that introduces you to the combat, you're introduced to what most would call the main hub, the actual village itself. The place that you will end up coming back to over and over and over again. And thanks to the design of this village, it's not a drag. I love coming back to the village after every area, seeing if anything changed, seeing if new areas might have been unlocked or could be unlocked, and a few extra areas in the village in the game where you can actually find little secrets and cool stuff. That was in the village. The introduction to it is great as well, blocking off certain aspects and making it seem like certain points were blocked, but then you find a way around. It's great. And the visuals definitely help that. I played this on the PS5 and a 4K monitor, while my wife watched me play from our 4K TV, and we would both stop and just comment on how beautiful the game actually was. The game is so beautiful. The setting was a perfect choice, with the snowy mountain village to the dark castle, the dank mountain home, and even the factory of Heisenberg. It's also well designed graphically. We're both huge fans of Bloodborne though, and the setting, style, and atmosphere of that game, and I'm sure that definitely helps out Resident Evil Village, because it feels like they took heavy inspiration from that game. I just touched on it with the graphics, but I still have to mention 3 of the 4 areas in the game as well. Starting with the first, Lady Dimitrescu. I'm still trying to learn how to say that. Her castle is extremely well designed, graphically and from a level design standpoint, from the main room to the winding hallways to the side rooms, dining room, kitchen, and even the dungeon. It just all works. Even the puzzles we have to do in this area are good. Most of the game, they end up being decent. You can hear my critique of that in the actual review. Some that had me confused and puzzled in this area, and some that were just cool, for lack of a better word. Then, hands down, the best area in the game, and the area that future horror Resident Evil titles should definitely model themselves after. House Beneviento. Hopefully I'm saying that right now. I missed the N in the review. Beneviento. The design of this area will go down in the history of Resident Evil for me. I wasn't as scared in any other area in any other Resident Evil game as I was in this area. Maybe I'm overselling it or upplaying it a little bit, but it was just legitimately spectacular. The dark winding hallways where you could barely see right in front of your face even with a flashlight. The thought-provoking puzzles, the mindfuck moments with Mia on the radio, and moments from your past. The game literally showing you your next steps. Truly creepy. And speaking of horrifyingly creepy, the side boss that you don't even fight. We'll talk about the design of the main bosses in a little bit, but this side boss that you literally just have to run from is the thing of nightmares. I usually hate when horror games or movies or books, whatever, try to use a giant baby or fetus thing to try and scare the player, but this just does it right. You don't fight it, you just run. And that ear-piercing cry you hear when it's after you, and right before you run into it, it's just terrifying.
Let me in! Let me in!
This is an in-defense video, so I think we're going to skip over the fish area and head straight into Heisenberg. This is, as I said in the review, where I unfortunately forgot to click record on my recording software starting this session. So I don't have a lot of the gameplay through this section, only picking up near the end of the area after yelling, "Oh God, no." But I'll still try and put what I'm talking about there when I'm talking about it. For me, this was a strong area, a very strong area in the game. While my wife doesn't really agree with that, I don't really have any criticisms when it comes to this area, or any areas in the game, really, except for the fish place, just the length, really. This section is weird, a machine factory, man-machine style area we see in movies, TV, and games. And while it's not the strongest I've ever seen it, it's still great. It stays with the dark lit areas House Beneviento brought to the game. Most of the area is just dark, you can barely see right in front of your face again, and that makes it tense for me. With the new enemy type of the area just loving to jump out of nowhere and scare the holy shit out of you, it just feels nice. The atmospheric setting, while straying very far away from most of the other areas in the game, was still intense. It introduced, admittedly, easy to kill, but very well designed enemies, foregoing the classic shoot it in the head to kill it, and added a kill spot on it. Even have the designer, Heisenberg himself, acknowledge the weak spots and papers you can pick up around the area, leading to fighting armored versions of the enemies, flying, and even brute versions. It was great. This area also introduced another very well designed and at least moderately terrifying side boss. I don't think I actually got the experience Capcom wanted me to have with him, as I had an ass ton of mines and pipe bombs by this point and just blew him all to hell. But he was extremely well designed, and while I lost the footage, the tease for the beginning chase, or rather Ethan Run Now, sequence introducing the side boss was tense and fun as well. That's the areas though, all extremely well designed. Even the weakest that I mentioned here and there could have been great with a little bit of TLC. I loved exploring the areas and finding the few puzzles and secrets that were actually there. House B though, goddamn, House B, spectacular. Next is the characters. The designs of these characters, the little backstory we get to know, mostly everything about them, minus two, are amazing. Spectacular, even. I truly believe while this game doesn't fully hit the mark, the characters definitely hold up next to the Baker family from Resident Evil 7. I was very interested in who these characters were, what their motives were, and what their backstory was. And I wanted to see where their story went, even if I knew they'd probably end up dead by the end of the game, because of course it's still a Resident Evil game and their villains. So let's start once again with the start. Lady Dimitrescu and her three daughters, Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela. These characters definitely take the cake for the most interesting characters in the game, along with the castle, which contends for the second best area in the game in my opinion. Mostly everyone was freaking out about Lady D before and even now after the game's release, but my wife and I found the three daughters way more interesting. And that's not saying Lady D's not amazing, I'm not trying to take anything away from that character, but the daughters were intense. Three insane murder fly vampire girls who, like Lady D, their mother, require human flesh and blood to survive. They were absolutely amazing. Well designed, well voice acted, the whole nine. The same stays for Lady D. I don't know who at Capcom had the idea for a 10-foot tall posh Freddy Krueger vampire woman, but give that person a goddamn raise. Everything from the model design, voice actress choice, dialogue writing, animation, everything just perfect. Great. I'd love to have a full standalone Resident Evil side game set years before 8, giving backstory on just these characters. Kinda in the same realm as something like 1 and 7 horror, a horror aspect, but also that one aspect of moving through the castle. We know how the story would probably end, being a prequel, but I'd just love to get to know these characters more, and that trend does continue. But now for House B, Angie the Doll and Donna Beneviento. Holy shit, that's hard to say. Donna is revealed to ultimately just be a pro voice actress and is invisible controlling the doll the whole time, but damn, this little shit is intense from the scene she's introduced. The old creepy doll thing has been a thing for years at this point, and got really popular with The Conjuring and Annabelle to my memory, and you can tell this game greatly pulls from that, and it does it extremely well. With it just being ultimately a doll, it doesn't have a very intimidating presence and can't do a ton physically, and that's where the game brings in the psychological horror, and it does it so goddamn well. Once again, I'd love to have a whole Resident Evil psychological horror subgame based entirely around this character. Some of the old school gaming tactics and mindfucks this game brings back, along the same lines as Psycho Mantis from MGS1, Metal Gear Solid 1, man, and it was just great. And that brings us to the character that the game actually nails the theme of. See, Resident Evil Village tries to take the pity route for some of these villains, mainly Moreau and Miranda, but they also do it with Heisenberg as well.
I am the one who knocks.
It's revealed by Heisenberg, actually, I believe, and expanded on later on that all four of the Lords are just Miranda's experiments. We find out it's to find the perfect vessel to resurrect her daughter later on, but Heisenberg hates her for it, wants revenge, and even goes to the dude killing all the rest of the Lords to meet his goal. His motives are understandable, being forced into this life, being tortured and tested on, and even at one point showing some sympathy to the villagers. I really enjoyed the idea behind her, and it does help that the character sounds like Nicolas Cage and looks like a combination of Nick and Maximilian, dude. That just adds to how well the character is, played. And then we come to Miranda. While I might not like her boss fight or actual presence in this game, her backstory that gets revealed to Chris and the player in the lab is actually really interesting. Being over 100 years old, fully mortal at that point, discovering the mold while wandering in a cave to die, grieving for her daughter that she lost to the Spanish flu, that's interesting. Spending years using the mold on this village for experiments, creating the four Lords, the failed experiments being the Lycans, all in the search for her daughter's vessel. All of this just to see her kid again. I'm not gonna lie, it's relatable. She might be a crazy murder witch, but, I'd go to the edge of the world for my son. I don't agree with what she's doing, but as a parent, I get it. if that makes any sense at all. She even has a connection with Spencer, the dude who basically started the Resident Evil universe as we know it. Resident Evil 7 and 8 have now expanded on this, but he was basically the cause for everything starting out in Resident Evil 1, and some, if not most, of the events that actually follow. His company, Umbrella Pharmaceuticals, did that, or at least some very dumb employees. That's just cool. I like when a story that branches off eventually reconnects and expands even further. That's good storytelling to me. And of course, I have to mention Ethan, the character that everyone disliked from RE7, and I even see some people still saying that they hate him in RE8. I still don't know why, honestly. Yes, he wasn't the best at the beginning of Resident Evil 7, but I didn't instantly like Chris from RE1, and I didn't instantly like Leon. Yeah, I did. We all did. Leon's great. Ethan, to me, became a very likable, hell, lovable, and relatable character by the end, if not middle, of Resident Evil 7. I started this game loving the character and wanting to see him save his daughter. The character just got better for me. Even though he made some really dumb fucking decisions in this game, I still love the character, and I think most of this game only did good things for Ethan. That's why the ending pissed me off so much, but that's not for here. This is a good thoughts video. One other character I mentioned in the review, and I want to mention here as well, Duke. Duke was a pleasant surprise. I went through the entire game thinking Duke was an undercover boss, villain, hierarchy of what was going on. I even thought after Miranda showed that she was everyone and everywhere, I thought she may have been Duke as well, but no, he was a character that basically guides you through the game, popping up in each area to sell you goodies and even buy what you don't need. He was his own character, showing up in Ethan's time of need as well to bring him where he needs to go. I loved it. Duke, as small of a part he played, and I mean, even that's debatable, he ended up being a really interesting character, and another character I want to know more about. But that brings us to one of our final points, parts of the ending, mainly the dialogue and emotion behind it. While I don't agree with the ending and thought Ethan could have become a staple character in the Resident Evil universe going forward, the same way Chris, Leon, Claire, and Jill all have, the send-off he did get was emotional as hell. I enjoyed it. The way it played out with what was given was great. The actor playing Chris was great. Ethan and Mia as well. Even though I'm not pleased with the send-off, I'm pleased with the send-off he got. Also, even though I'm not pleased with how often the combat actually happened, I do have to say the combat felt great. It has the classic clunky Resident Evil gunplay that we all know and love, and I personally couldn't imagine a Resident Evil game without it. It really excels in the Mercenaries game mode as well. The game mode you basically unlock as it's only 10 coins, but you get it after you beat the game. I actually really enjoyed that mode as well, going through a speed run of sorts through mostly every area in the game. It does feel a little clunky and weird here and there, with enemies not spawning in where they should, messing up your perfect run, but other than that, it feels pretty good, and really shows off the combat of the game. Even though I'm not showing it because I have no gameplay recorded for it, take my word for it and try it out. It can actually be addicting to get that SS rank in every area for the lightsaber, which there's a lightsaber in the game if you didn't know about it. Get SS in every Mercenaries area and you get a fucking lightsaber in Resident Evil, so get to it. That's actually pretty cool. But that's my video. In defense of Resident Evil Village, I came off as extremely negative in the review, in my eyes at least. And I think I didn't relay the actual amount of good things in the game. I didn't want to leave the perception of my perception of the game the way it was. It definitely deserves criticism in a lot of it. It's definitely one of the weakest entries into the Resident Evil franchise, especially in comparison to 7, but it's nowhere near a horrible game. It's actually great in some aspects, and you know, I'll play it again. I'll probably do another run-through of the game very soon. It's got some aspects that are just great, but ultimately it just leaves you wanting more, and I think that's the overall, take from my review, from my fiance, my wife and I's review. So take it for what you will. This is my in defense of this game. Let me know in the comments down below how you felt about Resident Evil 8, my review, and this in defense of video. Were there any good things in your opinion that I actually missed out and didn't mention in this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a discussion about this. But that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I really hope you've enjoyed the past 2 videos if you watched them. This video and the review of Resident Evil Village. I've had a lot of fun writing them. There's not a whole lot of times where I actually sit down and write these long videos like this, but I really enjoy doing them, even if it is a shit fuck ton of work. I really enjoy it. I love the discussions that it tends to start. So, again, let's have some in the comments down below. But thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed, I've been your host. My name is Tootin, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.